All right, take 568 or something like that. Hello, folks. James Bush, fellow classmate. I hope that you're all doing well. I'm going to take just a little bit of your time to talk to you about Venezuela. Venezuela is a country that is rich in resources. In fact, they have the largest oil reserves in the entire world. And at points of its history, it's been the most powerful country in South America and the second largest petroleum exporter in the entire world. Yet, today, it is in a state of economic crisis. In fact, it's the worst political or economical downturn in history, worse than our very own Great Depression. So how does it get there? Why is the country so rich in natural resources in such a poor economic state? Well, there's some people that would point their finger at the socialistic programs, the socialism in the country. Programs that were put in place to feed the hungry, house the poor, fund education, and medical care. Similar to some of the programs we have in place today in the U.S., programs like the welfare system or funding for education, the Pell TAP grant, you may have received one of those yourself to pay for your very own college tuition. Those are forms of social programs. While very costly, I'll admit, I'm here to argue that they have very little, if anything, to do at all with the current economic state in the country. So then what's it cost? Well, there's political corruption. There's been a long history of that. There's the overdependence on oil production and a lack of investment in other areas of production for income. Those things add up and play a big role in it. So over the history, there's been many corrupt leaders that have been funneling money out of the oil production industry for their own personal gain and the gain of their political party. That, for starters, plays a big role in their current economic state. They even had one leader that, upon being thrown out of office on his way out of the country, snagged up $200 million, and he took that with him. That probably hurt. And then there's just been an over-dependence on oil production in general. They depend heavily on oil production to fund their country. For instance, 2014, early 2014, the GDP was around $371 billion. They were one of the fastest growing economies in the entire world. And that was probably about the peak. A little bit later, in 2014, the price per barrel of oil dropped from $105 a barrel down to around $48, and I think it settled at about $50 per barrel. Never really came back from that either. Well, the problem was over 50% of that GDP was from oil production. So when you have that much of your economy relying on one particular industry and it crashes, that has a large detrimental effect on your economy. One of the main reasons that the country is in the economic state that it is today. Now, that being said, when I started this research project, things were pretty bad. If you've been paying attention to the price per barrel, as you can imagine, things have gotten exponentially worse. Another one of the problems, which goes hand in hand with the over-reliance on oil in general, is the lack of investment in other areas. Just a mismanagement of the resources, because it's not that the resources aren't there. They have resources. They have iron ore. They have very fertile farmlands. Yet they produce very little of their own food. Most of their agriculture is imported. Very little of their manufactured goods are made in their own country. A lot of their goods are imported from other countries, which makes them more expensive. On top of that, they were in such a poor position in the late 80s, they had to take a bailout from the IMF. That bailout led to increased inflation on goods, things like food and transport, furthering the economic state that was already pretty bad to begin with. So how do I know that it's not because of socialism? That socialism doesn't work? Well, let's look at Germany. Germany is a country that has very few natural resources. They really don't have a lot of oil, not a ton of iron ore, or any other farmlands or anything significant, really. What they do have is an excellent workforce. And that workforce has become a powerhouse because of their social programs. Social programs that fund healthcare and education. So they have a young, healthy workforce that is well educated. So they excel in production. So, yeah, they have to import a lot of their raw materials. But because of their advanced field of engineering from their social programs, they are leading engineering production materials in the world. Their economy is based off of that investment into their workforce, based on those social programs. So it's hard to say that one country that is rich in natural resources is in an economic downturn and in a state of crises because of social programs, when those same social programs have been the savior of a country that has very few natural resources. So that's my argument about the Venezuela crisis and why it has nothing to do with their socialistic programs. Thank you for listening.